Mrinal, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You're audible. Audible.
Okay. মোৰ slide দেখা পাইছে না আপোনালোকে?
হয় পাইছো।
ফুল slide হৈ আছে নে আপোনাৰ সৰুকে আছে?
ফুল শ্লাইড হোৱা নাই, আপোনাৰ শ্লাইডৰ হেৰি শ্লাইডবিলাক ওলাই আছে।
আপুনি স্লাইড বোৰ্ডটো শ্ব' কৰি দিয়ক। স্লাইড বোৰ্ডটো
হয়।
স্লাইড শ্ব'। আপুনি নহয়
এক মিনিট।
ৰাইট চাইডত কৰ্নাৰত আছে আপোনাৰ আইকনটো।
এতিয়া আছে ফুল slide?
এতিয়া হৈছে sir।
Okay.
Das sir. Hello.
কোৱা।
Das sir. Bornali madam is getting some problem in joining the Zoom. Kindly assist her.
বৰ্ণালী মেম।
মিনাল প্ৰিন্সিপাল ছাৰ আহিলে নে?
Hi, বাইদেউ।
তাত
Hello.
কৰো নেকি? হেল্ল'?
হয়, প্ৰিন্সিপাল ছাৰ জইন কৰা নাই।
কৰা নাই
কৰিব
ন?
এতিয়া কৰিবা। হয়, কৰিব এতিয়া।
ঠিক আছে বাৰু দে।
হয়, হয়।
মহাদেৱ
I can't listen anything. I can't listen. Start video. No.
Good evening to all.
I think you are muted.
মেঘালী বাইদেউ আপোনাৰ মিউট হৈ আছে।
হেল্ল' সুৰজিত ডিম্বেশ্বৰ শুনিছানে?
হয় হয় ছাৰ।
ঠিক আছে।
Am I audible now? Yeah,
Yes, বাইদেউ।
হয় বাইদেউ।
Good evening to all. Good evening to all. Dr. Halbahasi Mohanto, noted economist from the prestigious National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, Dr. Bhavesh Hajarika, Gorgaon College Accuracy Coordinator, supporting schools, members of college and institutions, and dear students and participants. Meghali Kola, Head of the Department of Commerce, Gorgaon College, on behalf of the organizing committee, welcome you all to our webinar on Union Budget. We are happy to have you all here today, joining us from different institutions to discuss the latest Union Budget. As you all know, the Union is one of the most important financial documents presented by the Government of India every year. It provides a comprehensive overview of the government expenditure and revenue plans for the upcoming financial year. It is a critical document that sets the tone for India's economic growth, and its implications are far-reaching, affecting every sector and individual in the country. Today, we have gathered here to discuss the recent Union budget and its impact on various sectors of the Indian economy. We have with us Dr. Bhavesh Hazarika, an economist from National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, New Delhi, who is an expert in evaluation of public policies, rural development, entrepreneurship, and gender studies. I encourage you all to actively participate in the discussions and share your thoughts and ideas with the resource person. Your contributions are very invaluable, and we look forward to a stimulating and engaging conversation. Once again, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our participants. Thank you. Now, I request our Honorable Principal Sir to offer his inaugural speech.
Thank you, Dr. Meghali Bora. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Yes. A very good evening to you all. Dr. Meghali Bora, HOD, Department of Commerce, Gorgaon College. Dr. Surojit Sakya, Coordinator, IQAC, Gorgaon College. Today's resource person, Dr. Bhavesh Hazarika, a leading economist of the country and a renowned figure in the economic analysis, and the teachers from various colleges, respected teachers from our college, and my dear students. At the very outset, as principal of the college, I would like to welcome you all to the webinar organized by the Department of Commerce on the Union Budget 2023-2024 that has been already presented in the Parliament by our Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on February 1st, 2023. I would like to offer my sincere thanks and gratitude to Dr. Bhavesh Hazarika for sparing some time for us and giving us the consent to participate in the webinar that has been organized by our college, and I hope his speech will definitely benefit our students as well as our teachers. I don't want to elaborate on the budget because we have already resource person on the topic. I don't want to define budget. As we all know, budget is an important document for our all-inclusive growth as we desire. And this year budget 2023-2024 budget also, that has been vision for Amrit Kal, that which is articulated in the Union Budget of 2023-2024, and the budget focuses on inclusive development. It focuses on providing opportunities to all our citizens, and special focus on the youth power and investment and infrastructure. Various points the union have been taken care of for as a mark to celebrate the Amrit Kal on the completion of 75th years of our independence. So we have the resource person, an economist, a leading economist, Dr. Bhavesh Hazarika. He will explain everything. I don't want to go into detail of the budget because we are here to hear Dr. Bhavesh Hazarika. Hope his speech will, and the deliberations that would be taken place in the session will definitely benefit us, definitely put some light on the economic analysis. And as we all know, the India is now the 5th largest economy in the world, and so I think this budget is definitely an important document to analysis the socio-economic development, analysis the all-inclusive development that has been desired by every citizen of India, and again the MSME sector that has been given importance by the Indian government, and the growth and job creation at the same time, investment and infrastructure, and also the giving focus on the youth power. So I think this year budget is definitely very important for our upcoming coming days. So we are eager to hear Dr. Bhavesh Hazarika. I welcome you all. I again offer my sincere thanks to the resource person, and I offer my sincere thanks and gratitude to all the participants, and also I do appreciate the excellent endeavor that has been endeavor on the part of the organizers who have organized this beautiful webinar on the on a very current topic, relevant topic, the Union Budget 2023-2024, and which will definitely benefit the students, benefit our students as well as our teachers. With this hope, with this I wish the webinar would be a big success, grand success. And with these few words, I declare the session is open. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Principal Sir, for your inaugural address. Your words has always been a motivation for all of us. Now, I would like to give a brief introduction about the resource person of the webinar. He is Dr. Bhavesh Hazarika, who is presently an economist in the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. Dr. Hazarika did his master's from Guwahati University and later migrated to IIT Kharagpur for pursuing his PhD work. His research interests include public policy and program evaluation, rural development, entrepreneurship, and gender studies. Besides this, Mr. Hazarika has authored many research articles in Thomson Reuters, Scopus, and UGC College journals. Thank you, Dr. Hazarika, for being among us. You can now start your session, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, especially the principal sir and Mrinal for having me in this webinar. So I'll keep it short. So I'm actually still in the office. So my office will be up to 8, and then I have to leave the office. I'll just try to keep it short. As a presentation is showing in your laptop or desktop?
Yes, it's visible, sir.
Isn't it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just briefly define what is basically a budget. So it basically gives us a kind of statement about the expenditure and the revenue that the government do incur in the current, we can say in a specific period of time. Initially, we know it's normally we do it for a particular year. So it gives a kind of the vision documents that the government has for the current year, how they are going to start to provide the services to the citizens. So if you see, we normally talk about budget. So that word basically it's not in the constitution. So it's just a kind of a GK kind of information. So in constitution, we only have this annual financial statement. So we give a statement regarding the financial activities where the money comes to the governments and how governments basically spend those money. So it's basically a kind of statement on revenue and expenditure. So that is basically there in the constitution. Just a kind of GK kind of things I have just want to share with you all. So the budget was presented on the 1st of February. So what the key takeaways? So for me, basically this budget try to have a balance between fiscal consolidation. So what do we mean by fiscal consolidation? We do have a target of reducing our revenue deficit and fiscal deficit, because those, if we have deficits, basically, বেছিকে আমি যদি ধাৰ কৰোঁ তেতিয়াহ'লে কি হয় তাৰ মানে ইমপ্লিকেশ্যন হয় ইন টাৰ্মছ অফ ইণ্টাৰেষ্ট পেমেণ্ট এণ্ড ডেপ্ট চ' আমি বেছিকেলি ইয়াতে চাইছো যে we are trying to get the fiscal consolidation path so that we'll have a kind of sustainable work in the coming years. And the second thing, we are also trying to achieve the growth momentum. So these are the two things we are trying to seek a balance. See, when we are trying to achieve growth, so we need to spend more and more. But if we spend more and more without having much revenue, then we'll have a problem in terms of having higher borrowings, and which basically have an implication in terms of your debt and interest payment. So this is a kind of two issues. So we need to have a balance between this. So this particular budget, if you see the numbers, then we are trying to see a balance. The big ticket in this particular budget is the capex, the capital expenditure. Muldan is a normally. Capital expenditure আমি এই কারণে বেছিকে আমি ইম্পৰ্টেন্স দিয়া হৈছে কাৰণ আমি যিমান টকা খৰচ কৰিম in terms of capital expenditure আমি যদি তাৰ মাল্টিপ্লায়াৰটো চাওঁ তেতিয়াহ'লে we have some numbers. Our own institute NIPAP has done some work on this calculating multipliers, both the revenue side and the capital side. So we are getting that the multiplier out that basically accrue from the capital expenditure is much higher than revenue expenditure. So etoka jodi ami revenue expenditure খৰচ কৰো তাৰ যদি impact হ'ব in মানে জিডিপিৰ ক্ষেত্ৰত সেইটো ক্যাপিটাল এক্সপেন্ডিচাৰতকৈ কম হয় সো এই কাৰণে কি হৈছে লাষ্ট কাপল অফ ইয়াৰ্ছত গভৰ্ণমেণ্টে ফোকাস কৰিছে আপোনাৰ ক্যাপিটাল এক্সপেন্ডিচাৰ ইফ ইউ সি দ্য নাম্বাৰস ফৰ দ্য লাষ্ট কাপল অফ 5 years so it's going up and up and up. And this year also, if you see the numbers, it is almost 10 lakh crores. And if we take the other asset creation activities under the revenue expenditure head, so total effective capital expenditure is at around 13 lakh crores. It's a huge number. It's a big boost in terms of giving a kind of infrastructure and other capital activities. Second point মই ক'ব খুজিছো সেইটো হৈছে moderation in personal income tax to boost consumption demand. Basically, if we see the composition at the GDP, 60% is coming from the consumption expenditure, private consumption expenditure. So ইয়াতে আমাৰ কি আছে ইনকাম টেক্সত বহুতখিনি ৰিলিফ দিয়া আছে in terms of the middle income group so that they can spend more money, and that will basically give you a kind of demand, and subsequently we do have a kind of impact on the in terms of increased GDP. Why we need to have a kind of higher level of GDP? It does have an implication for your revenues, because as a government you need to spend money, and to finance those money you have to collect the revenues. Unless until your economy perform well, so it will be very difficult for the government to finance those. So they have to go for more borrowing. So again, it will have a kind of debt trap. And if you see the budget documents, then you will see that there has been a lot more emphasis has been given in terms of green growth. This is in line with this SDG. So we do have SDG target to be fulfilled by 2030. So if you see, there has been a lot more talks about the natural farmings, then again green energy and all those things. We also saying something about green bonds to finance to address the climate actions. And more importantly, if you see for Northeast region per se, we are getting a kind of more investment or more allocation from the union government. So it has come around 5,892 crores, which is almost double as compared to 2020-21 figures. So this is my basic key takeaways from the budget. So now let's go to the growth perspective, what they are basically saying about the growth numbers. So nominal GDP for the current year, they have projected to be around 300 lakh crores. And for me, this number is little bit conservative. We could have estimated a little bit higher number. If you see in the recent episodes, maybe in last 2 years, whatever we have budgeted the growth numbers, but actually we are getting a kind of higher growth rate. Say, for example, last year we have estimated it to be 11%, but in actual, we are getting it's around 17.6%. So it's a kind of beneficial for us in terms of your revenues, because it does have implication for your tax collection. Now what they are saying that for 2023-24, they have estimated the nominal GDP to be 10.5%, and then inflation rate they have targeted to be 4. So net and real economic growth will be around 6.5%. But if you see RBI recently, they have forecasted the headline inflation to be 6.8%. So in that case, the real GDP will be around how much? It will be close to 4%. So there's a kind of mismatch. If you see in recent year, I think after that Ukraine and Russia war, so we do have a spike in the commodity prices at the international level, and because of that, we do have a kind of inflationary pressure across the countries. So with the advanced countries as well as the developing countries, there has been a monetary tightening policy. They are increasing the interest rate. So it does have an impact when there's an increase in interest rate in the advanced countries. So there has been a capital outflow from our kind of countries like India. So if your private capital is basically going out, so that will have an impact in terms of your whole growth scenario. Because in GDP formulation, you know that we do have also need the component of private capital. So if there's a lower number of private capital, then again, it has a kind of detrimental effect in terms of your reduced number of growth. But if you see the other agencies like World Bank or IMF or ADB per se, they are saying that in India basically is going to grow at around 6 to 7% in real terms in this current fiscal year. So in that sense, I think we still, I do still believe that our number is still conservative. If these factors or factors like war and this commodity, if those things will be eased in the current fiscal, then we are going to have some good numbers in terms of our economic growth. Let's see the macro fiscal numbers, what basically we are getting from the budget that Sitaraman has presented. So if you see the total expenditure, the total TE, basically it's around first, second, third, fourth, fifth, fifth row. So the total allocation for this current fiscal year has been projected to be 45 lakh crore, which is so it's around 3.5 lakh, 3.5 lakh crores higher than the revised estimates. If you see the kind of revenue expenditure, we have a kind of modest increase from 34.6 lakh crores to 35 lakh crores. So it's a very modest, if you see. An interest payment, if you see, we are going to have something around 10.8 lakh crores. And capital expenditure, it's basically, it has kind of a huge jump from 7.28 lakhs to 10.10 lakhs. So it's a kind of big boost in terms of capital expenditure. Like I said, that last year, what happened, our GDP growth was much higher. We had attained something around 17% against 11%, which was budgeted in last year. So accordingly, we have got benefited in terms of tax revenue. If you see the tax revenue in FY23 RE, the revised estimate, it was around 20.87 lakh crores instead of what we have projected. It's around 19.35 lakh crores. So we have around 1.5 lakh crores. That is a windfall gain in terms of tax revenues. But at the same time, if you see, we also increased our total expenditure, mainly driven by the revenue side. In revenue side, we have increased our allocation under subsidy program, food subsidy. We do have this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, which is basically given free food to the people. and the lower end of income distribution. And then we are also giving subsidies to the petroleum sector as well as the fertilizer sector. In fertilizer sector, what happened because of the war? So there is a spike in the raw materials; those are used in manufacturing fertilizer. So in order to negate the detrimental effect among the consumer, basically the farmers, so the government had given a lot of subsidies to the producers. So we also have given a lot more money in terms of rural employment, then again defense sector and pensions. So whatever increase in the total expenditure, those are basically negated. Those are basically adjusted in the revenue side, including food subsidy, fertilizer subsidy, rural development, and again pension, defense, and all that. Interestingly, if you see the numbers for health, if you compare the budget estimate of 2020-23 and the revised estimate for 2020-23, then there is a kind of decline by around I think 5,000 crore or something like that. So it is not so good when we are talking about kind of having the demographic dividend and all those stuff. So what I want to make a point from here, if you see the interest payment, so interest payment is something around 41% of revenue received. So whatever money we are getting, both tax and non-tax revenue, so 41% is going for servicing our interest payment. And if you compare with the total revenue expenditure, so it's basically have a share of 31%. So only 69% is basically used for development purposes. I think that development process will be a little bit less because we are also spending some money on pension, salaries, and all those things. So, so that number for the money available for development activities will be much lesser. So let's just see this figure where the government gets money and how government spend the money. So we do have both tax revenue and non-tax revenue. In tax revenue, we have this income tax, then Indian excess duties, then again GST, corporation, okay, then customs also. And again, in non-tax revenue, there are several other sources, including the dividend from the PSU and profit and other things. So most of the money, if we exclude the borrowing and other things, let it just keep aside for the time being. So maximum money we are getting from the indirect taxes, that is the GST and other taxes. And then income tax and basically other one, the corporation tax, it's giving a 50-50%, 15% coming from income tax and corporation tax. Union excess tax, the duty is also contributing around 7%. But net, what we're saying here that we're still borrowing heavily. So it's basically, it's a good thing that we should borrow because a government should borrow to finance its activities, but that money should go for kind of which in the areas which basically giving you the more returns. It should not go to finance your regular revenue activities. It should go mostly for capital expenditure. But if we see along in maybe in the next slide or so, we'll see that some portion of this borrowing is going to servicing our revenue expenditure, which is basically not a good thing. In terms of expenditure, if you see, we have a component, basically the CSS program. It basically includes both central sector schemes and centrally sponsored scheme. It's around 26% is going to for those kind of activities to financing various schemes. Then the major chunk is going for interest payment. Around 20% of our expenditure is going for interest payment. So we need to focus on this particular because it is basically a non-development items. So we need to reduce it. But again, there is a catch. So paying interest, having borrowing is not a bad thing until it's basically giving us dividend. So whatever interest if we are paying, so if the money we have borrowed and we are spending on capital investment or maybe productive activities, which is giving more return compared to the interest that we are paying. So up to that point, it's fine. We can go and borrow more and more money. If the interest rate is much more higher than the return we're getting, then there is a problem. So that is the one thing we need to focus. Then another thing is subsidies. That is basically 7% is going for subsidies, which is basically again a kind of non-development item. So I'll take 15 minutes. Okay. Okay. So subsidies. If you see the numbers, maybe in the later slide, I'll show you. So gradually we are trying to reduce the subsidies. Where in the last year, because of the war and other things, we had to spend a little bit more, but otherwise we are trying to contract the subsidies. These are the fiscal number. Okay. Okay. So if you see, these numbers are in terms of GDP. So we have the absolute number divided by the total GDP. So we are getting a ratio. So what we are trying to see here, if you see the first line, it is giving a net of TR, total revenue. Net of TR, why was saying net of TR? So whatever revenues goes to the union government, especially the tax one, so we need to share some of the portion. Now it's around 41%. We need to share with the state. So excluding that sharing amount, so whatever left out, it is the net to the central government, the union government. So if you see, there has been a little bit of decline in that. If you compare 2021 and 21-23, we are getting a little bit of high. Then again, if you see total expenditure, this is a kind of worrisome. So our budget size is coming down. So it was around 19% in 2021, which is the actual number we have. And what we have budgeted is around 15%. So there's a decline of 4%. So our budget size has gone down in terms of percentage of GDP by 4%. So why we're doing this? It is basically we are trying to follow the fiscal consolidation path. So we are trying to reduce our deficit number, the debt number. So we are trying to reduce those things. But if you see where we are reducing those numbers, we are reducing in the revenue side. Revenue expenditure, if you see, it has come down from 16.17% to 11.6%. But if you see the capital expenditure, it has gone up from 2.99% to 3.32%. This is the third last row. And in terms of effective capital expenditure also, it basically includes capital expenditure as well as the asset creation activities, grant and aid that is basically given to different bodies by the central government. So if we consider those amounts also, so effective capital expenditure has also gone up from 4.2% to 4.5%. There's another number. It should basically reflect the sustainability issue. Basically, whatever revenue you are getting, how much of your revenue expenditure is financed from your own revenues. So it gives a kind of sustainability issue. So if you are able to meet your expenditure from your revenue, then it is a good thing. So if you see, there's a kind of increase in that ratio also. This is a deficit number. So we have, if you are aware of this FRBM Act, so we have a target to achieve the fiscal deficit should be 3% and revenue deficit should be close to 0. So we have to achieve that. So we have a consolidation, fiscal consolidation path. So before COVID, actually, we are in that line, but because of COVID, that if you see the fiscal deficit number, so we had a very hard time in terms of our economic activity. So our total GDP went down. So we had to borrow more and more. Our revenue, basically tax revenue, non-tax revenue, both were basically very at a bottom level. So we had to borrow and more. So our fiscal deficit spiked to a level of 9.2%, which is very, very high. So we are back into the track. We are trying to reduce those number, and for the current fiscal, we have estimated to be 5.9%. And in the next couple of 3 years, we're trying to bring it down to 4.5%, and maybe another couple of years we'll be able to achieve our target of 3%. But again, it all depends on the current scenario, that scenario, what will prevail in the coming days. So there's a spike, not spike, sorry. There has been a kind of, if you see the revenue deficit, so there's a sharp decline we're targeting from 4.1% in 2022-23 RE to 23-24 BE. So there's a sharp decline we're expecting. Then again, we need to find out where we are reducing those number. We are keeping it. If you compare with the fiscal deficit, we are reducing by only 0.5%. But again, if we see the revenue deficit, we are trying to achieve by 1.2%. So if you see in the later period, then we'll say that there has been a lot of areas where actually we need more investment, but we are trying to reduce those numbers because we need to achieve this fiscal consolidation part. This is the sustainability mentioned, that revenue expenditure, to what extent we are able to finance those from our own revenue. And then again, the second row, it basically says the effective revenue received. So we are excluding the grant in aid because those are going for capital asset creation, so we can include it as a capital expenditure. So if we include them, then our total revenue expenditure will be goes down, and then we are going to say that around 84% of our total revenue expenditure in 23-24 would be financed from our revenue received, both the tax revenue and non-tax revenue. So remaining around 16% that will be financed through borrowings. And this number has, the scenario has been improved some from 73.3% to 84%. In terms of capital expenditure to fiscal deficit ratio, this is very important because fiscal deficit is basically, it adds to your debt numbers. So we need to pay interest on that particular amount. So that's the borrowing, if you see the net. So the ideal scenario is that whatever you are borrowing as a government, it should go for capital expenditure so that the return would be much higher, and we'll be able to repay the principal as well as the interest payment that is accrued from that particular amount. So if you see the ratio, earlier in 2021, it was around 37%, and there is a kind of gradual improvement in terms of that ratio. And for 22 to 23, 24, we have projected it to be 56%. Then again, if you consider the asset creation activities under revenue expenditure, then the numbers will be much higher, from 53% to 77%. So it's a quite good thing that we are spending more money what we have borrowed in terms of asset creation or capital expenditure. This is a kind of right step, because if you spend on revenue expenditure something like interest payment, pension, and other thing, so that will have very low, or we can say that we don't get a return out of that. Of course, if you spend some money on pension, then again, that do have an impact in terms of consumption demand. So it will have a little bit of impact. But if you compare the kind of capital expenditure or capital asset creation, so the there will be kind of huge differences in that. So the basic thing is that whatever we are borrowing, so it should go for financing the capital asset creation. That's the motive. So if you do it in a bigger way, if that ratio increases and closes to 100, then we can say that we'll be very much in line to service our debt, and we can go for more borrowing instead to finance our activities. Let's give a few minutes on capital expenditure side. So as I already told that there's been increase in the capital expenditure up to 10 lakhs, and if you consider the other capital asset creation, then it goes up to 13 lakh crores. The basic assumption is for increasing this capital expenditure is again the multiplier effect and following by income and employment effect. Then if you break down this increase in capital expenditure, where we'll see a kind of huge jump in terms of railways. It has been around 50% jump in terms of your total allocation. Then there has been announcement for 100 transport infrastructure project, mainly the metro and mass rapid transit system projects in the urban areas. Then again, we have a 10,000 crore per year. This is a kind of fund allocated under Urban Infrastructure Development Fund for Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, which basically allocated for management of dry and wet waste, as well as your housing and all those things, and also smart cities. So those kind of money will be used there. Then again, for North specific to finance activities like water supply, power, connectivity, tourism, and all those things. So we have a kind of increase, an allocation of 2491 crore for Northeast Special Infrastructure Development Project. These are basically under capital expenditure. There's another one basically in back in 21-23, so 21-22. We did not 21-22. It is in 2021. We the Indian government basically they have implemented a scheme to give states interest-free loan. This is for 50 years. So for this current fiscal, the Union government has set a target of 1.3 lakh crores that will be given to the states. Condition upon there will be several conditions laid down against that, for which the states can avail the loans. But if you see in the last couple of years, states are slowing down in terms of capital spending. For example, Uttar Pradesh, which basically targeted to spend around 1 lakh crore last year, so they have spent only 32% of its budget till December. For Assam specific, it's around 40%. So we had a target of spending 21,682 crores in terms of capital expenditure, but till December, Assam has spent around 40% of that particular money. So what does this basically implies is that there has been not the amount of allocation, but we also need to step up the administrative operational capacity of the states to spend more effectively. And we also do need to have a kind of better capital spending planning. This is where we normally see many capital project. Those are basically initially taken, and then after a couple of months, those projects are basically abandoned, or those projects are basically got struck, which basically due to poor management of or maybe you can say poor planning of capital spending. There's another thrust given in this budget, especially in terms of green growth. So this is in line with the sustainable development goal in terms of we have this net zero, we have the target, then again carbon emission and all those things. Then again, we are also trying to go for more green energy. So we are also trying to achieve natural farming. So those are the activities that are targeted under green growth initiative. So one is this PM Pranam. Then again, Green Credit Program under EPA to incentivize sustainable action. Then we have also the NISIT programs to mangrove. Mangrove is basically in the coastal line. You see at the plantation, so which is very important to tackle down the effect of your cyclone and other things. Then we also, the Indian government also aiming to setting up 10,000 bio-input resource centers, which basically gives you the organically produced seeds and all those things. Then again, some other bio-inputs, which basically is chemical free fertilizer and all that. So the target is to get natural farming under 10% of your total net cultivated area in India. But if you see in this direction, we do not have a kind of protocol for natural or organic farming. We are implementing it. Sikkim, Andhra Pradesh, they are doing it experimenting, they are doing it trial basis, but we don't have a kind of foolproof protocol. কি কৰিব লাগে, কি কৰিব নালাগে, like that. In this direction, we need to spend more in terms of research and development, so as to increase the awareness, productivity, and competitiveness. So why we need to have more R&D? Because whatever agriculture produce we are producing, we need to get a kind of higher export share. We need to have a kind of better share in the international market. So if you see, India is basically in case of agriculture, we do produce a lot more and we are all exporting, but we are not getting the premium in the international market. It's because of the kind of quality. So to get the kind of international competitiveness, we need to spend more and more in terms of R&D. Okay, we can also skip this one. Then let me skip this one. Let's come to social sector, because social sector is the one which basically captures the people in terms of your human development and people's capability. So we need, along with the physical infrastructure like road, power, irrigation, and other thing, we need the social infrastructure in terms of your education, health, and others, so that which basically gives you kind of better capability among the people, which is very much important. Because if you see the production function, labor is very important. If your labor is not capable enough, so that won't give you kind of premium or return to your production function. So if you see in the social sector, which basically needs a kind of lot more importance from the union side, because we all know that these are coming under state list. So states are very actively doing it, and the responsibility of implementing these are basically given to the states. So states has to spend more from their own pocket. But again, if you get more support from the union government, then state will be happy to spend more and more. So it will have a kind of basically it will give a kind of boost if you have more money from the central. So you are going to spend more at the state level. But if you see the social sector, the last row of the table, the social sector as a percentage of your total expenditure, it was around 7.12% in 2020-21. But we at 23-24, we have projected it to be 5.16%. So there's a kind of shrinking, that the social sector expenditure has been shrinking over a couple of years. So this is an area where, see, we know that we need to achieve that fiscal consolidation path, but it should not come at the cost of social sector, because it is very important to cater these people to have a kind of better return from our demographic dividend. So unless until we spend more on education and health, so we are not going to get the return in terms of our GDP. So I think the Union government has to be a little bit more proactive in spending more money in social sector.
Get out of the class over here.
So allocation under measure scheme, we have a little bit decline in terms of Manrega. And then again, not the other one. In food subsidy, we are trying to reduce those number. But other than that, we are increasing the numbers in absolute term. But if you compare in terms of GDP, then there maybe you see that there is a kind of declining trend. But as of your absolute numbers, we are getting a little bit more allocation in every aspect except this Manrega and the food subsidy. Manrega, and again, that is again demand driven. So if the demand comes from the people, then allocation will be higher. One interesting point is the PMAY. This is the housing program. So it was projected to spend around 48,000 crores in 2021. That is the BE number. But there has been an increase in the sanction list, and we also have now this Awas Plus, where we are getting more and more people into that list. So we are spending more money into the particular program, PMAY. Okay, so I got the kind of request from Minal that we need to spend a little bit more time on the personal tax proposal. So I'm trying to cover it within 5 to 10 minutes. So in personal income tax, where it's basically giving a kind of ease to the middle and lower end of income distribution. So in the tax proposal, what we have the new tax regime, which is basically a revised one. It is basically put as default. So when you are filing your income tax return file, so there you will get it is as a default one. So if you wish to migrate to the other one, then you have to check there. So there will be the kind of buttons. So unless until you check for that, so you will be taxed under the new tax regime. So tax rebate is increased to 7 lakhs. That means if your income is 7 lakhs or below, then you no need to pay tax under the new tax regime, which was basically earlier just 5 lakhs. So as per the earlier regime, so you would have been taxed for around 32,000 or something like that when you are earning around 7 lakhs. And why they are trying to get this revised new tax regime, because in the last 2-3 years, what central government they have noticed that there has not been a significant migration from old tax regime to new tax regime, and government basically trying to go for deduction less regime. So they are trying to go for this new tax regime. So what they're trying to say, they're trying to make the new tax regime in such a way that the tax amount that we are paying, whether it is an old tax regime, whether it is a new tax regime, we are paying the same amount of tax. So that's their target, and then the ultimate target is to do away with this old tax regime and completely adopting this new tax regime. So in the new tax regime, we are getting 5 slabs as compared to 6, which was there in the earlier. And one important addition here is the standard deduction of rupees 50,000. So earlier it was not there in the new tax regime, but it was there in the old tax regime. Then there has been a study. There is a study by Ernst & Young India. They have claimed that if the maximum exemption and deduction claimed by salaried individual is more than 4.25 lakhs, then only one can benefit from the old tax regime. If your total deduction or exemption, if whatever your claim is lesser than 4.25 lakh, then you won't get benefited from the old tax regime. And there has been another announcement in terms of tax exemption on leave encashment on retirement. Earlier it was, I think, 3 lakhs. 3 lakhs. Now government is not going to tax up to 25 lakhs. So this is the tax proposal. there's a tax slabs. Basically, initially we had this 6 tax slab. Now we are having 5. And if you see a little bit of differences, this is basically not the old versus new. It is versus new versus the revised new. So if you are having a 7 lakhs and earlier you will paying as per the earlier tax regime, it would be around 32.5 thousand. Now you don't have to pay. So your total benefit is around 32.5 thousand. If your income is around 10 lakhs, then your as per the reverse new tax regime, your benefit will be 15,000. And for 15,000, 15 lakhs onwards, if that is your income, so your total tax benefit will be something around 37.5 thousand crores. Sorry, 5,000 rupees. So it will be something like after 15 lakhs plus. So whatever your income will be, so the total tax benefit will be something around 37.5 thousand. So it will be a lack of constant beyond 15 lakhs. Okay, so this is basically the old versus new. I think you already have some idea about that. For old tax, we no need to pay up to 2.5 lakhs, and then 2.5 to 5 lakhs if your total net taxable income after deducting your deduction and exemptions. If your net taxable income is less than 5 lakhs, then you no need to pay. If your income is more than 5 lakhs, then you will be taxed for the amount 2.5 to 5 lakhs. It will be around 5%, and beyond that you need to pay around 20% and 30% respectively. And for new tax slab, you already know about that. Earlier it was 0.2.5 lakhs. Now we have got a kind of new slab with a deviation of 3 lakhs. Earlier it was the deviation was the differences was 2.5 lakhs in between the slabs. Now it is 3 lakhs. So this is the kind of table which basically gives you where you will stand. So everything depends on the column extra deduction. So if you are able to claim more deduction, then you will be better off in the old regime. That is the one simple funda. So standard deduction, it was there in the old tax regime. It was not in the new tax regime, but from this fiscal onwards, this standard deduction is also there in the new tax regime. So everything depends on the extra deduction. Under new tax regime, you are not going to claim for other deduction, but under old tax regime, you are going to claim the deduction. So it's all everything depends on that extra deduction. If you are able to claim more deduction, then you'll be benefited under the old system. Okay, these are the break-even tax payments for different level of gross income. So yeah, so if you see the maximum deduction for different level of gross income, so the total tax will be paid under new or old will be same. So you have to claim more. For example, if your total income is 10 lakhs, so you need to claim deduction more than 3 lakhs, then you'll be benefited under the old system. Otherwise, you'll be benefited from the new system. So you'll break even if you are claiming something around 3 lakhs, so you'll be you'll be indifferent between new and old system. Say, for example, if your income is something around 20 lakhs and above, so you have to claim more deduction. It should be more than 4.25 lakhs. Then only you will be benefited under the old system. Otherwise, the new tax system will be beneficial for you. So if you see, it is very hard in practically to claim around 4 lakhs if you don't have a home loan. So if you have a home loan and if you're paying more and more interest, then in that case, you may be benefited Otherwise, the new system will be the beneficial, and the union government is also expecting that there will be a kind of huge migration from the old tax system to new tax system. So the income tax department, they do give this income tax calculator. I think they will update you, update the as per according to the new tax system, and then from that calculator, anyone can get his numbers, his total income, the maximum deduction they are going to claim, and ultimately it will give the numbers, comparing number between both old and new tax system. Okay, this is a provision basically under housing loan. I don't want to go into detail on that. And this is the deduction basically we claim. One is the HRA. Nowadays, when your gross salary is going up, so we are not going to get much benefit from HRA. Housing loan is the one thing where we can claim more and more. ATCSC, we are claiming it around maximum 1.5 lakhs. 80D medical insurance, we are claiming at around 25 and 50 for the retired personnel. And then other deduction, basically exemption comes from the donation that we make to the registered societies or NGOs, and although we can also claim a deduction for it. So the basic idea is that more or less the new tax regime would give a boost to the consumption demand, and but all depends on the extent that how many people will migrate from old system to new system. I'll conclude maybe in 2 minutes. So we are on the right path towards this fiscal consolidation to achieve the number, but execution will be very critical. And one thing is that when we are spending more money from the government side in terms of capital expenditure, we do have it in balance theory, and then we also have this crowding out effect. When you are spending more money from the public sector, then they will be crowding out of your private capital. So we need to see whether private sector is also participating in spending in capital area, capital expenditure. And if you see, there's one point on this investment, we have this national infrastructure pipeline and other things, but if you see the numbers, this has not been growing as expected, and we also don't have a clue from the current budget what their strategy is, whether they are going slow in the direction or they are going to have some more initiative. And more importantly, if you see in the recent year, the share of non-tax revenue is going down. I think that's the one area where they should focus more, because if we at least sustain, even if we are not going to increase the share, but if we sustain the same level of share in terms of non-tax revenue, then we'll have more fiscal space to spend something like in the areas of education and health. There's another issue in terms of the PSU, how PSU are basically functioning. If you see the dividend and profit that what the Indian government is getting from the PSUs, so it's going down by 43%. So there's a lot more need to do in this direction. I think government is also looking forward or looking strategically in terms of privatization of the PSUs. But for me, net overall, the budget has been balanced. It is catering the needs of the people. They are, but we also looking forward to have more allocation in terms of your social sector per se. I think I can stop here and we can go for maybe a 5-minute discussion. Then we can wrap it up.
Yes, sir, sure. So,
Yeah.
to all the participants, the floor is open for any kind of discussion, any kind of questions you have. If anyone wants to ask any question, you can ask directly to sir, or you can write in the chat box also.
Okay. I'm not getting any questions.
Sir, before
Yeah.
anyone asks question, I have one inquiry. Actually, it's not a question in
Yeah, sure.
particular. So, as we have told a number of times that about this thing, that the allocation to the social sector has been decreased. So, over a period of time, I have also seen that in the year 21, 22, 23, and 24, from 7.12% to 5.74%, then again 5.12, and in the 24, it's 5.16. So it was completely over a period of time, it has been decreasing. So what implications it can have in the society?
No, I think what I'm basically trying to say is that you see the social sector, whatever the items or activities are, those are basically from the state list mostly. So state has to be proactive in spending money in those in those activities. So what I'm trying to say is that if you get a little bit more boost from the union government, then we'll have we can see more expenditure from the state level also. So that's the basic idea. So if it is not happening, so we do have now centrally sponsored schemes, so where we are having a kind of funding pattern, sharing funding patterns. So if we allocate more money in those areas, so states will be bound to spend more money. So eventually at the economy level, we'll get a kind of higher spending, and definitely we are going to get the returns out of that.
Yes, sir. Yes. So one question that has come into the chat box that, sir, are there any special benefit for startups given in this budget?
Startups, we do have this PLI schemes. There's PLI schemes, and for agriculture also we do have this Pranam from this year onwards for agricultural startups. So there are a lot more benefits, both in terms of subsidies, both in terms of tax exemption, tax rebates. There's another question: what may be the possible outcome seeing the decreasing percentage spent in health sector?
Health sector.
Yeah, definitely. See, we need more money. If you see the recent episode of COVID, what has it done to us? So we don't have a kind of infrastructure what we need. Even if you go to the remote areas, you don't see the kind of doctors availability, nurses availability, in fact, medicine and all those things. So we need to spend more on those. So if we are not going to spend, so it will have an impact in terms of the people's capability, which is very much important. So if you don't create your human capital, then ultimately you are not going to see a kind of growth that you are expecting. So for growth per se, you need to have a kind of very healthy people. So you need to spend more on the health sector. If you see our national health policy, we have targeted to spend around 5%. That's our target, 5% or 4%, something like that. But we are unable to spend 2% itself. So we are lagging very much behind in terms of spending on health sector.
Yes, sir. So I was, sir, I was supposed to ask one question regarding to deductions for the salaried people, but you have already answered that part before my question. So that question I won't be asking anymore, because you told that how much investment we'll be doing. Depending on that, we'll be getting more deductions. We can get the benefit from the new tax regime.
I think it all depends on the housing loan. If you have kind of home loans, which is a kind of big amount, then only you will be benefited from the old tax regimes. Otherwise, it's very difficult to get exemptions or deductions under the old system. So you will be maximum you will be get deduction, I think 2 lakhs, 2.5 lakhs, something like that. So it has to be more than 4 lakhs. Then only you will be benefited from your old tax regime.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Just to mention that since you do have this economic students now in graduation level, what you can do, we normally have all these internship programs. This is kind of one thing I want to just mention. NIPFP, then in Delhi, basically there will be several other institutions which offer internships. So whenever your semester ends, so you can apply for this uh, these programs. So in that case, you start applying, then we can see if there's any possibility, then we can accommodate.
Okay, so that is
Yeah, I think
especially.
Mrinal,
Yes,
I
sir.
think we need to stop because the person from our office is asking me to just leave.
Oh,
He
yeah,
is
yeah, we have
waiting,
already
yeah.
left. So Miss
Yeah,
Ankika,
we
Ankika
will.
Datta is there. I will ask her
Yeah.
to offer a vote of thanks.
Thank you. So we have almost come to the end of today's webinar. And on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our respected principal, sir, Dr. Sabyasachi Mohanto, sir, for always encouraging and supporting us in organizing special talks and webinars for the greater benefit of the students' community. I would like to extend my vote of thanks to our esteemed resource person of today's session, Dr. Bhavesh Hazarika, sir, economist, National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, New Delhi, for gracing today's session and for enlightening us with his enriching lecture. I would like to extend my vote of thanks to Dr. Surajit Saikia, sir, coordinator, IQAC Gurgaon College, for collaborating with us. Special thanks goes to all the heads and teachers of our associated schools, namely Nazira HS and MP School, Dolbagan HS School, Lakwa Tatia HS School, and Sibsagar HS School. Last but not the least, I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to all our faculty members and students for participating with us and for staying connected with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankika. So we have come to the end of this session. So we declare that the session is over.